Welcome back, Smart Start Radio family. Before we get into our latest amazing episode, we have a quick word from our sponsor. With spectacular hotels, amazing theme parks, and unparalleled entertainment, Universal Orlando Resort offers a meeting destination unlike anything else in the world. Welcome back to Smart Start Radio. I am your host, one of two, Eming Piansay.
And I am host two of two, Sara Robertson. Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
We're very excited for today because we have a very special guest, Megan Akatu. She was a speaker that I met at the IAC event in Texas. I don't know when this was because months blend together in my head.
The months always blend together.
Yeah, but she had a great session on how to express yourself within your team or your boss or vice versa. The room was just like, tell us more. But sorry, the session's over. And luckily for me, by some act of God, she sat next to me at dinner and I was like, this is my chance.
Oh, that's so awesome.
This is my chance. So Megan, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Can you kind of give our folks a sense about you and what you do and your background and all those wonderful things that make you you?
Yes. Thank you both so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Yes, I'm Megan Akatu. I am a leadership coach, and I am really working with leaders to bring forth their most authentic leadership style, and really so they can support their best selves at their work. They can naturally be more strategic. They can think at a higher level, but really so they can better support their teams. I care deeply about the entirety of the employee experience. And I believe that leaders have a huge impact on that. And before I became a leadership coach, I spent a long time in the hospitality world.
Right.
And so that's where I intersected with Eming. And that's what brings me here today.
Amazing. I feel like that kind of thing happens so much where Eming and I see like a keynote speaker or somebody doing some kind of session and we talk to them afterwards like, hey, so I have this podcast. Like that happened with
more than you think.
Yeah, I think our episode last December with Melissa Radu and Alexis Karaluk from Destinations International thing that I saw pretty soon. Or in our July episode, you heard somebody from IMEX, and yeah, all the time. I mean, like Eming and I see all these amazing speakers and we come up to them and we're like, hey, so we got this podcast. Can you please come?
Yeah. And I think especially now in this like segment of time, like communication is, I feel like it's getting harder to do. Mm-hmm. My first question is, what made you want to do this? Because I know this is not an easy task. Like telling people or giving people the assets or the ability to communicate effectively so that they can like grow their business or their group or their team or whatever it is. How did you get into this?
Yeah.
Such a good question. I think the short story is I was leading diversity and inclusion efforts in the wake of George Floyd's murder. And within my hospitality division, which was 1,000 people. So it was big. I was working at a large university. And it was in those moments where holding space, asking curious questions, having people share very much from their heart, building that trust. And it was in that moment, I think I could be a coach. Like I might not have all the answers, but I can hold the space for other people to ask these questions and build trust. And I know that building trust is one of my superpowers. I also know that connection with people is another one of mine. So that's what started. So while I was still working full time and got my coaching certificate at night, and then knew at that point that like the next thing for me was to go start my own leadership coaching business. So
amazing.
That's how I got here today.
Awesome.
Wow.
I think
really
that's
cool.
a really important point you make, that like I don't have all the answers, but I have some superpowers that enabled me to be really, really good at what I do. And I think that that's really important. When you're coaching people, what does that process sort of look like?
Yeah, I think it is natural for me to just really lean in with a lot of trust and just say, okay, like we're in this together. We're on this journey together. I'm going to hold the space for you to speak out loud. You can say whatever you want. I'm not here to judge you, but I am here to help you process and get some things out verbally, which is its own form of healing, but then also really look into the future of like, how do you want to show up? How do you want to be? What are the things that you want? And people get a lot of motivation from that. And as adults, we often don't take the time to do that. Like we were doing it when we were younger, we were in school. It's like, okay, I'm trying to do this and I want to be this major,
definitely.
And then we get into the working world and we're like, oh wait, what do I want? And so it's really creating that space for people to say that. And that's where the clarity comes from. And then that's where the transformation happens.
Wow. What are those kinds of things that you typically see when you're, like working with a group and you're like, these are sort of areas where we can heal from? Like, what are kind of the across the board common things?
I don't necessarily want to put a number on it, but I would say the vast majority of us are walking around more in our heads than we are being present in the moment. So as you were talking about in a work situation, like you're sitting around a physical table at a leadership team meeting, and it's more like, did I say the right thing? Is my boss mad at me? Well, if I say this, are people going to think this of me? I don't know if I should speak up. And so we're more talking to ourselves than we are listening and sensing in the room. And it is more from a kind of a fear of failure, wanting to do the best work, but maybe not always saying it or doing it, in a way that best supports us. So oftentimes we're overworking to prove ourselves or we're over volunteering for special projects. And if we can, I work a lot with confidence. And so if we can just be more secure in like our special gifts and like what we bring to the table, then it helps us sense into, would this be a really well-aligned project for me to work on? Or is it actually time for me to hold back and someone else would be better for this? And when we can do that from a place that we know is supportive to ourselves and not based on what we think our boss's impression is of us, that can go a long way.
Yeah.
Even in supporting the communication, even within the room.
That's a big deal, I think, like, especially for younger professionals, like there's this desire to prove yourself and like as you're building your career. But I think that can continue even when you're like mid upper management, like you're still, this is a deeply ingrained habit that we have. And it seems like it's not everybody, but the vast majority of us do struggle with confidence, which is really a shame because if we had more confidence, we could go so much further.
Absolutely.
What does building confidence, that process of building confidence in the workplace look like?
Such a good question. So like let's say we were working together, whether it was in a group program or in a one-on-one situation, really going to look at like, what are those stories that we tell ourselves? So similar to what I was just saying, like what is the continuous loop? Where does that come from? And how do we practice new behaviors in order to stop that? We do a deep dive on looking at our own strengths, and we actually interview people that are close to us who really support us, to even have people mirror back what we believe our strengths are. And then we work even with the physical body of like, how does this feel when I'm either receiving this sort of feedback? What is my body telling me? What feels well and aligned? And then we can really listen and from that grounded place. And so I work a lot with groundedness and presence. Then we can better decipher what is a yes for us or what's a no. And then from there, we can verbalize, yes, I'm a yes for this project. I'm a no for this project. And then the more we even support what we know is best to do, that our confidence really starts to come through. And so it's a process. It does not happen. It does not happen overnight.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I'm curious about in like the work environment and such is that more often than not, I feel like people who are in like the higher levels of an organization like don't always know how to communicate effectively to the people who are below them. Not because they have certain things, but they just don't know how because they can't relate to them on certain levels for obvious reasons. Like, I give you money to be here, essentially.
Right. So, or it's been so long that they've been in that position, they don't remember what it was like to be in the lower position,
Yeah. So in that respect, like, is there any things that you can offer people in that role where they can like, be more, either communicate better or be more relatable in a sense so that the people below them kind of, see them as not just like my superior, but someone who cares about me beyond what I am doing for you in this position.
And I mean, to add on to that, and even correct me if I'm wrong, but like, it seems like it's kind of the opposite problem of like the building confidence and like having confidence to say no versus being able to tell an employee like, hey, you can say no. Like, it's okay.
And just to clarify, do you want it from the more junior employee's perspective or from the leader's perspective, or both?
I guess the impact on both would be interesting. Yeah. I mean, like, what does it look like from each perspective?
Okay, perfect. Well, I would say from the senior leader's perspective, it's actually not so different from what I was saying. So this person may project confidence, but is likely dealing with the very same things of, I want to make sure that I look like I'm guiding my team to be very productive, or I need to make sure that we're making this quarterly number, or I'm really scared that we're not going to be able to do it. So there's probably some confidence or lack thereof in that situation as well, even if it comes out differently. And I think one of the best things that a senior leader can do is really do their own, this is very similar work, their own self-work of, oftentimes, you were saying they're not always clear. It's because they aren't clear with themselves. They might say, I want this project done. Well, what does that mean? And oftentimes they don't know either.
Right.
And so that's then where the junior employee with this confidence can say, well, what does that look like to you? What does success look like? And part of that is having the confidence to not just take the order and then go back to your desk and then get back to your desk and be like, oh my gosh, I actually have no idea how to do this. But then to say, oh, all right. And like, right. Have we all been there? Have we all been there? And so, but even say, okay, or what if we looked at it from this perspective? Or I was thinking about, or yes, I believe that that's possible. But what about on this timeline? And I think as we can even interrupt the pattern of just like going, doing. So even by, let's say, the employee, even asking a question or two, oftentimes it's enough for the leader to be like, oh, right, I wasn't being clear. Let me reframe that, or let me lay out even just milestone 1. We don't need to talk about the whole project all at once. So part of this is just being aware enough to interrupt the pattern. And it starts with one or the other. It either starts with the employee being self-aware enough to be like, hey, I need more information. I'm going to raise my hand. And the leader themselves can also be doing more of this groundedness work to be more aware of how they're coming off in the first place.
Right. So you're saying it's on the person who's being tasked this to kind of ask more questions, to prompt them to think more about what their request is. Is that what you're saying?
I would say, I believe that the responsibility lies with both parties, 100%. And if you are not the senior leader and you're looking for ways to get more clarification, that is where the courage and confidence comes in to interrupt that pattern.
So would you say that's kind of the first step, is going in and like seeing the pattern and then breaking the pattern? How do you get people from that step of like identifying the pattern to like getting to that next point where they're able to break the pattern?
Yeah. And so that we would do a lot of that work within the coaching of, I tried this and it didn't work. Okay. So, but I would just say on a simple way is, what do we even do before we walk into a meeting? Oftentimes I feel like we're rushing from one thing to the other, especially in hospitality, right? Heavy operations, like in the moment, like I might need something. I got to move. Did you take 5 minutes before the meeting? Did you put your feet on the ground? Did you take a few deep breaths? Did you, whether you are the leader or the employee, did you get clear on the intention that you wanted from the meeting? What's the outcome that you desire? Are you walking in with that intention of even defining the type of meeting? Is this a feedback meeting? Is this a performance meeting? Is this a update meeting? Is this a strategic planning meeting? Where are we on that spectrum? Did we take a few moments to get clear on what we wanted out of the meeting? How do we want to feel when we finish that meeting? How do we want the other person to feel when we want this meeting? So a lot of this is even just practicing mindfulness and groundedness and being very present to what is happening in the now, and not just rushing from meeting to meeting. But we have to give ourselves that space to say, you know what, I deserve 10 minutes in between meetings so I can figure out the next thing I need.
Yeah. Being proactive and intentional rather than just kind of sailing on through, floating through. Yeah. I'm interested in like the mindfulness aspect of this process. And like, could you speak a little bit more to mindfulness, what it is and how it helps us?
Absolutely. And mindfulness, in short, means being present in the moment and even allowing whatever emotion is there to just be there and not judge it and not necessarily try to whisk it away, but just being like, oh, anger's here. Great. Excitement's here. Great. And there's many, many practices in how to incorporate that and how to be with that more specifically. And different people have different things. And so, I have a morning routine where I wake up, I make tea, I get out a journal, I play soft music, and I'm really writing my intention for the day of like, what's the feeling that I want to carry me through the day? And then especially on a day like today where I have like, this feels like this is fun. And it's also like, oh, I'm going to be like being recorded and I want to make sure I'm showing up as myself. Like I made sure that I had time before this meeting to just get reacquainted with myself. And in order to do that, some people like to go for a run. Some people like to do yoga. Some people just like to dance. Some people need to get their feet in the grass. Some people can do it once in the morning and be fine for the rest of the day. Some people need, every hour I'm going to get regrounded, but nothing really, it could be as simple as I'm taking 6 deep breaths. Like a lot of this can be done in 30 seconds. It doesn't need to be, I need a whole hour just to get myself right.
Yeah.
Set. Even my morning routine that I've talked about, I can do it in 30 minutes. I could do it in 10. And so I don't have 30 minutes every day.
Yeah. Right.
I think
so we can make little changes depending on how our day looks.
Right.
That's a really important point. And I was actually going to ask, how do you convince people that like this is worth embarking on? Because like so many people, we're all aware that it's good for us and that it helps, but like that step of like getting started and like building that habit and like getting yourself to take like 30 seconds or 5 minutes before a meeting to ground and regroup is not something that we will necessarily always make time for until we get in the habit and we realize that it's important enough to make that time.
Yeah.
But like it's the process of getting it to be that important enough. But I think like, yeah, you make a really good point about like, you can take 6 breaths, like that'll take 30 seconds, you know?
Yeah, you are so correct. And building a habit is hard. I could be a very stubborn person. So even for me, right, it can be hard. And so I would say whatever works best, if it's a calendar, right? Like there's something on your calendar that says, once every 2 hours, I'm taking a break. It could be reminders or pop-ups on your phone. I'm someone that I do need all the things reminding me.
Yeah, I am too.
To do that. Yeah, okay.
I am too. My reminders app on my phone, like I love the reminders app. I literally use it every day.
I'm not someone who can just like hear something once and then be like, all right, I got it. And I'm off to the races. So I need all the reminders. An accountability buddy could also be helpful. And for me, I've just, I've learned over the years, I make better decisions when I do this. I'm able to prioritize my time. The outcome of the meeting is more effective because we were both clear in what we needed and wanted. And so we don't have to have the meeting after the meeting, which is more efficient. But just like you were saying, Sarah, like I know this, I feel like I'm pretty good at it. And still sometimes, whether it's like I'm just coming back from vacation and I get back in that mode of like, oh, but now I got to catch up. And then I'm like, why do I feel terrible? Oh, because I took everything that I know to do and I threw it out the window. And so people that are deep in this work still fall off and still need to get back. And that so much of that is just giving yourself the grace of like, and even just laughing it off, like, oh yeah, that was my vacation brain taking over. Okay, time to get back into what I know and not beating yourself up of like, well, why did I forget to know this? I should know better. And it's just like, all right, we got to let that go. And we can always choose the 2 minutes or the 6 breaths at any point.
Yeah.
I kind of want to take a little verge away from the mindfulness thing, but I kind of want to get into the aspect of, okay, say I want to talk to, if I work at a different, not smart meetings, but a different organization where I have an issue that I want to bring to my boss, but I am scared, like fear. I just say fear. Fear rules a lot of our actions. And so in a work scenario where you feel like you want to express yourself, like you want to be able to say what you think and give input, but you're also scared that it might come off a certain way and you might be treated differently because of that. And it may make you word things differently because of the fear of bringing this attention to whoever it is coming to. So what do you do with that? Like how do you manage the fear in a scenario where you're like, okay, I'm going to be saying something that's kind of triggering probably to someone. And how do I do it in a way that doesn't make me feel like I'm in trouble after this is over?
Yeah. Such a good question. I love this question. Such a good question.
I feel like so many people are going to take so much away from this. Okay, please continue.
I know. So first is it fear? And it very well could be. I don't think you're wrong when you're saying fear rules a lot. Is it fear or do I just feel really uncomfortable? So for instance, this is where journaling might be helpful, going for a walk, sitting in meditation, because there is a difference between I feel really uncomfortable walking in and having this conversation with my boss. And like I'm being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger and like I'm in physical danger. And so number one, I think is even separating like what is going on. And because of the modern world that we live in and we're not being attacked by saber-toothed tigers anymore, uncomfortability can feel a lot like physical danger. And you can feel it in your chest and like things are tightening up and your shoulders are coming up. And so the first thing is even just recognize, what is this? Okay, I'm really uncomfortable. Okay. All right, so let's just name that. Okay, I'm really uncomfortable. Then it's, well, then what am I uncomfortable saying? Is it because I'm saying for the first time what's actually on my mind and I'm afraid of the reaction? Is it because I feel like I need to say something, but I'm not even really clear, but I just want to express the feeling of disappointment, hurt, whatever that might be? Right. Okay. Right. And so then it's like, what is the what is the conversation? Then this leads into another thing that I'm super passionate about, which is feedback. I don't think many people in organizations give feedback well, and that's like another topic for another day. And so go
we'll
back
talk
to
about that.
Okay, all right, yes. And but what are you walking in to say? Like, I have too much on my plate. I can't do this. I need help prioritizing my project. Hey, I didn't like the way I was being treated in this meeting. Like, all these things can be very uncomfortable. But there is still a way, though, of being clear on what do you want out of the meeting? What do you want your boss to take away with? What's important for you to say?
Right.
But also, what do you want the person to do? Because you can even be clear. I just want you to listen. I need to just say something that's on my mind. Or I'm saying something and I'm actually expecting some sort of response or different action going forward.
Right.
And I think that's where sometimes we are scared to say it. Okay. But then we kind of walk in and we're like, da-da-da-da-da-da, like, you cut me off in this meeting. And the boss is like, okay, I'm sorry. But then they don't necessarily know, what do you want from that? Do you just want acknowledgement? Do you want, so this is where the clear we can be of what are we walking in and what's the outcome we want? And I would argue, I feel like most leaders, when someone comes in, most emotionally intelligent leaders would, when they hear the clarity and they understand that, oh yeah, this is probably uncomfortable for this person to tell me, but they're still doing it. And that's taking a lot of courage. And I'm going to sit here and listen and really, really pause. You're definitely going to have some who aren't going to react well, but I would actually say that most leaders will react well when they understand that the clarity that's coming in with it.
Yeah. And I think, that ties back to your earlier point, take some time to prepare yourself, ground yourself before a meeting, because when you do that, then you being if you're that employee, you can walk into your boss's office and feel prepared and know what you want to say.
There was one during your session at IAC, someone brought up this issue and I kind of wanted to get to a little bit because it kind of relates. But the question was what if you wanted to bring to attention your boss an employee that you feel isn't necessarily doing their best or not? They're kind of things are happening that you're noticing. You can't identify what those things are, but it's hurting your work and it's hurting your team. And it was interesting how you kind of weaved us through because the person couldn't even identify what they meant when they were talking about it, but you kind of helped them get there. So I kind of wanted to know, is there a way to communicate that in a way that doesn't seem like you're attacking your boss, or that they haven't noticed that this person isn't doing very well and that you need some kind of assistance in this process because it's affecting your team?
Yeah, I love this so much. So let's just admit that there is a lot of nuances that happen between humans, right? So we're going to put that out there. And it would be my dream if every leader, and even perhaps in conjunction with their team, so let's say there's organization values, maybe you even have, department or division level values. I would love for each leader to then say, and then these are behaviors behind these values that we like to see. And I think that's where most people stop. It's just we have this value of trust. What does that mean on a day-to-day basis?
What does it look like?
Yeah, what does that look like in our day-to-day interactions, in the type of work that we do? Seth Godin has this quote of about around culture, about people like us do things like this, right? And so what are the things that we do? And so this is how, when we, in our culture of trust here at this organization, we look each other in the eye when we pass each other in the hallway. We say good morning. We, so go back to the nuance of I have a spidey sense that this person is not contributing to the overall well-being of the team. My guess is that spidey sense is accurate. I don't actually doubt the spidey sense. I think our spidey sense is one of the greatest leadership tools that we have. But you're right. It's hard then to address what it is, but we've never taken the time to be clear with the team of this is how we do things, more so than just the mission, vision, values, goals.
Right. Yeah.
Things like that. And we just, I don't want to call it laziness, but we just don't take the time to bring it down to one more layer of specificity. And so that's what you're saying. If you're seeing or you're sensing something, it's well, can you tie it specifically back to the things that we said that we would do to succeed as a team? And even better if you've co-created it with the team. Because everyone said now there's shared language and a collective understanding of this is how we do things here. And oh, this is actually not aligning. And so now we can have a conversation about that. That's not maybe as blatant as, you crossed your arms and rolled your eyes in the middle of this meeting. Because that's where it's easier to give the feedback. And it can be very nuanced.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, like a lot of this seems to be coming back to it's the little details, like take some time to break down what trust looks like, take some time to breathe before a meeting and realize, like think about what you want to say, just like taking like everything just a step further to get a little more detailed, a little more nuanced, and a little more thoughtful and intentional about what you're doing and why. It's a hard thing for us to do because we are so busy and we are always rushing, but like we need to carve out that time because it's going to save you so much time in the long run. I'm interested now in hearing, from that boss's end, then what does feedback look like? Because I know that you are very passionate about feedback. So like, could you give us some examples and like some kind of pillars of what successful feedback would look like?
Yes, absolutely. Like in my CARES model of like, it is, how do we first show compassion of like, I'm here and I want to, I care about you and I care about your growth and development. So therefore, I want to have a feedback conversation with you, right? In that I want to have feedback. I want to provide some feedback to you. That also gives the moment, a moment for the other person to breathe and just say, oh, wow, feedback is coming. Okay. And then what is then the specific behavior that you noticed or saw? Okay. So without any, I know you feel like this, or I know that you are also taking care of your mother in the hospital and that's why you're late. It's just like, I care about your growth and development and I would like to offer you some feedback. You have been late 3 times this week and the impact on the team is X. And so it's like, this is an objective thing. You have been late and there is an impact. Then E, empathy. How can I best support? Well, and then really the E, empathy, is then you pause again. You are done. As a manager, leader, someone giving feedback, you don't need to overspeak. You don't need to be like, da, 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 da. And it's just, again, give them another moment. So there's breath in the front end and there's breath in the back end. And
Can I interject really quickly to say that that's so interesting because I think people, especially women, tend to over-explain themselves for literally everything that we can possibly get away with over-explaining ourselves for.
Yeah.
It's not just limited to women, but like it's very, very, very common.
I agree.
And you can probably tell I speak a lot, right? I have a lot of words I have a lot of words in my head and I have a lot of words that come out of my mouth. And you are correct. And then I would argue, go back to the beginning of this conversation, that goes back to a lack of confidence in I need to give feedback, and then a lack of clarity in what we are trying to convey. And really the intention of that meeting is to stop the behavior that is hurting the rest of the team. And I would argue that it's kind, because if this person just keeps going, being late all the time, and now the rest of the team's talking behind their back and be like, well, why is this person late? And now the manager isn't holding this person accountable, and that's so unfair. That brings down the whole morale of the team. And so what we're really trying to do is, I care about you and I want you at this level that is expected and honest. And if there's something else that's getting in your way that I don't know about, you're also giving them the space to explain, well, actually there's other things happening, and actually I need to move down to like half days or whatever it is.
Right.
You need to be able to have that conversation. And that's actually the S in CARES is support. Like, in which ways can I support you? What do you think about this situation? Right? Like, give the person the opportunity to explain what is actually happening for them in their real life, in their emotional life, in their physical life, so that a mutual understanding or new resolution can be sought out. But you're right. The hardest part in that whole thing is probably stopping and just saying, I'm going to give the feedback without judgment, without assuming what's going on in your life, and just letting it sit there and being okay. Go back to being okay with being uncomfortable, being okay with a moment of silence. But that is actually more supportive for the person, because now they get to think. They get to think. And then as you, the person who's giving the feedback, the person might cry. They might get mad. They might say, I need to think about it. They might say, you're right, I'm so sorry. They might say, you're right, I'm so sorry, and I don't know how to fix it. Can you help me? Like, there's a range of things that might come out, But because you've grounded and you've been clear about how you were giving the feedback, you can also then accept what's coming and just know that like different things might come out, but like that doesn't mean that you need to change your approach. You gave objective feedback without judgment.
Yes. You got to prepare to do that. So give the other person time to prepare to give their judgment-free, objective response back.
Exactly. One thing, it's not related to feedback, but it was kind of related to the earlier conversation on the clarity of, we were talking about like the employee and like, how do you push back and how do you ask questions? And so again, I think where sometimes timelines and projects get misaligned, where then the leader is like, hey, I thought this was due. And the person's like, oh, right. Oh, I got distracted with this other thing. Is that oftentimes we're not very clear at the onset. So even as, let's say, the employee, another way you can even empower your own self, and a leader could even train everyone on the team to use these same words. And I learned this from my teacher, Suzanne Conrad, of like, there's really 4 responses at the end of the day. Like, hey, I need you to work on this project. This is generally what I'm thinking, da, 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 da. And it's be like, yes, I got it. No problem. Timeline works great. I'm on it. And then you have committed to being, to that. No, I can't do that. And no is a complete sentence. And that might open up a further conversation of like, what else is on your plate? How do we reprioritize? And that takes some courage. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but again, we are not used to saying that very often. And this is where stepping into the uncomfortability would and could lead to a more honest conversation. The next is, yes, I can do that, but can we relook at this timeline? I would suggest moving it back 2 weeks, right? And then the leader has an opportunity to say, yes, that works for me, or no, it doesn't, or another opportunity to reprioritize. And then the fourth could be a completely new idea, or it can say, I need to think about it, but I will come back to you by this date with various options. So you, as the leader of your own life and the leader of your own career, you've been very clear. Yes, no, yes with a new timeline, a different counteroffer, a different idea. And again, now the leader knows exactly where you stand. And in shared agreement, you've either reprioritized, you've agreed on the timeline, you've agreed what's to happen. And I think sometimes we just take it and we're like, okay, I'll take it. And then we have not fully committed to the leader with what we're going to deliver back. And I know earlier in my career, I was guilty of this because I just wanted to people please. I would just want to be like, I got it. And then I'm back at my desk and I'm like, this timeline's impossible. I can't do this. And I didn't ever stop to say, I could have asked for a different timeline and still delivered a great project.
Yes, this is revolutionary in my head.
Good. And also, I do want to ask you, but when I'm saying this, are you thinking like, oh, that's possible? Or you're thinking like, oh, there's no way I could say that to my boss, or I can't say that in my organization, right?
Well, I think that there's going to be people who have answers in all realms, like, yes, I could totally do that. Yes, I already do that. No, I could never do that. I don't know if I can do that. Like there are going to be people all over the board listening to this. I think like that point, it kind of goes into, assessing your organization and your structure and, like how you hold your values and like if you make eye contact with people in the hallway and how you're communicating with people and if you're taking time to reset and center yourself before having discussions like this. And it's like, is that already a habit in your organization, or is it something that you could suggest trying to build?
Yes, I love that. And even what I love about that is like, it really empowers you as the individual and like leading your own career and leading your own life. That, like, at least, like I have been very clear with my boss about about my timelines and what can happen. And then from there, you can have a more honest conversation going forward.
Cool. So regarding that, and I can't remember if we spoke on this exactly, but are there tips or ideas that you can suggest for people who like want to build trust within their organization through communication? Because I know like sometimes like I've heard stories from other people like, they don't trust like the people they work for because they're not very honest in how they communicate. And sometimes you can kind of see it in how things are playing out in real time. And so in that respect, are there ways that like a boss can better achieve trust with their employees by, changing how they communicate or what they're asking or, things like that? I don't really have a specific example in mind, but
yeah, I will add to to that. Like, it's even kind of like a stereotype, I think, in our culture. Like, you look at television shows, there's like that mean boss. Like, have you ever seen Scrubs?
Yeah.
Like that guy.
And it makes me wince.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's
Dr.
a stereotype too. So like, to add to Eming's question, when this is so deeply ingrained in our culture to have this kind of mindset too.
Yeah. So the question was asked from a leader perspective. So first, like, the leader has to want to build trust within their team. And right, trust is built on tiny little acts of, I said that I was going to do this and then I did it. And I asked you to do this. And you asked me to follow up with another leader, and I did it, and I got back to you. And so it really is in the clear. It is in the clear communication of, like, I do what I said I was going to do, and I also followed up with you to say, like, did that work for you? Are there, as a leader, I would regularly. I mean, you could start. I mean, to me, I would start every one-on-one of how are you doing, and let the employee tell me whatever is on their mind. And it could be like, my dog is sick. I'm actually really stressed out, to, hey, I have 5 projects and I just really want to get through them with you. Great.
Right.
So I would say number one is, like, as a leader, let the employee drive the one-on-one meeting, and then if there's something that you really need to tell them, either, I would say make sure, like, there's always then the 10 minutes at the end where it's like, then you can give either feedback or there's like a specific project that you need to talk about. But hey, how are you doing? And let the employee run that. Also, at the end, you can also say, how else can I better support you? What other support do you need? So as leaders, like, we are really there to help our teams do their best work. And I know, right, many years, right? Like, I know that I also had a whole bunch of things on my plate, and I had other deadlines, and I had other things. But at the end of the day, like, that moment in that one-on-one meeting is really for the employee to get the answers they need, give the updates that are needed, get help on any next steps. And if we're just off thinking, but again, if we're just off thinking about the next thing, it's not really helpful. But again, this is for leaders who really want to build the trust.
Well, I was more curious, like, if a leader doesn't necessarily have the tools or the know-how to do it, like a try this example of, like, just like, here are questions you can ask your employee that might elicit some level of not necessarily trust, but at least lead you in that direction of, like, we can, outside of me just asking you how the work is going every week, like, I want to know you beyond that. Like, who are you when you're, and that's not saying I want to probe about your life, but, just a general sense of who you are outside of these walls.
There's so many ways. And so it's from as simple as starting the meeting with, how are you? To, is there a half a year check-in or a quarterly check-in where it's like you're talking about anything but work, and it's just like maybe you have like a human to human meeting. But I also think, I really believe, even just in the culture of coaching questions, and so coaching questions are open-ended questions. So as a leader, it's even as simple as, like, how would you suggest going about this project? What are the first 3 steps that you're going to take? I'm open to your thoughts about ways that we can make this better. And so in these little micro conversations, whether you're talking about a specific project or you're doing some big strategic planning, that part doesn't matter. But even just the leader not having all of the answers, but giving that opportunity to even say, what do you think about this? If you had to start something tomorrow and stop something tomorrow and continue something tomorrow, which ones would you choose?
Right.
And even just giving the employee, so now the employee feels empowered, but it's also building that relationship between the employee and the manager. And so I would say, and I would argue that there's likely training that would need to happen. A lot of leaders don't just know, like, oh, well, now I know how to ask these open-ended questions. There's usually some training, but I will say that training it's not hard. It's not hard to implement, and it's not hard to get accustomed to it. But then once you do, it's like, now I run all my one-ones, or I run all my team meetings with more of this, like, inquiry base, instead of like, I have all the answers and people are coming to me. And I think over time, this is where Sara was saying, like, this is what saves you time in the long run. Because now, like, your employees, either they feel more empowered to make decisions, and now they're coming back to you to say, okay, this is the way I think we should move forward. Are you good with that? And then the leader just has to say, yes, no, or yes, and just don't forget about this one piece, or make sure you're considering this.
One thing that makes this a little more difficult is when we like think about communication styles and like different types of communication styles. Sometimes, like people might immediately resort to being defensive, or they might get emotional in one way or another, on either end of the conversation, or like maybe it's a group of people, whatever. But like different communication styles can kind of throw a curveball in this like open, straightforward, honest communication. And so like when you have like these kind of conflicting communication styles in a room, how can you sort of go from an environment that's like this with conflicting communication styles to down the line an environment where you are having this open and honest conversation?
Yes. Love this question. And without going down a deep rabbit hole on assessments and things like that, I do think those can be really supportive. And so go back to how am I planning for this meeting, and telling my boss this, or giving them an update on this. I do think there is a way to support different types of, some people are more direct, some people are less direct. And I do think that's important to structure it, not change yourself, but structure it as much in a way that will be received best. I'm going to leave that there. The other big thing of when people start reacting in, let's say, an emotional way, or they're upset, they're frustrated, they're hurt, is I think we, as the other person, and I think it comes from an empathetic point of view, and I think it's not necessarily, I love empathy, and I think it's good. I think though we often take it on, like, I have to fix this. I'm the one who said the thing that triggered them, and now I need to go into the rabbit hole with them and fix it. And actually, the other person's reaction is technically not your problem. Yes, should you be empathetic? Yes. Should you listen with curiosity? Yes. Should you be supportive and like helping them move out of it? Yes. But I would also say be supportive in helping them move out of it is not. It's not taking it all back. It's not trying to fix it. It's going back to these coaching questions of like, okay, how can I help? What would feel most supportive to you? And I think I'm a deep empath myself. And so early on in my leadership journey, this was really hard for me because I would see someone get upset, especially in a feedback conversation we were just talking about. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should have said it better. And it's like, no, really, that feedback was still honest and warranted, and it is still in their own growth and development. And I need to be okay with the uncomfortability that they are upset.
Yeah.
And then I can sit here and then ask them like what's the best way to move forward without making it, I'm there to solve the problem. Because if we just mama bear all the problems and like take it all back, that person stops growing and developing, doesn't really even then know how to continue. And then we've just added way more onto our plate. And then we don't have enough time then to go be the leaders that we're trying to be.
Interesting.
So I think there's a separation. And I work with my clients with this a lot. And again, with Suzanne Conrad, it's called I am you are, of like, I am hearing the words that are coming from this other person, and I'm listening, and I respect you as a whole person. And I respect your opinions and your feedback and your emotions around this. But I am also my own separate person. And there's I don't need to take it all. I can just let that sit in the middle.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. 100%. And I think that that's really difficult for that person that we were talking about in the beginning, who's like trying to prove themselves and like taking on these tasks because they want to prove themselves, or anyone in general, really, but like particularly this person who is like, learning to let go, learning to say no to a project or an assignment, learning to allow this person to process their emotions themselves instead of trying to fix it or take it back. I feel like, it's definitely a journey.
You are correct. It is a journey. It won't be a perfect journey. And in order to continue to move up, when you were even speaking earlier about what I would say stereotypically, many women starting their career of like the perfectionist, like I do all the things and I'm on top of all the things. And then you get to a certain level of leadership and you don't know how to get rid of maybe some of the more task things. And now you are expected to be more strategic. You have the brain to be more strategic, but you're drowning in details. Right. And nobody along the way taught you how to delegate or taught you that it's okay to shed those things. And so I think that is where the being clear on like what you want for your career is really important. So we've been speaking a lot about clarity, and it's like, if I want this, I need to change other behaviors that I've had. And I'm not saying that it's easy, and I'm not saying that there won't be hiccups along the way, but the greater desire of the role that you want is that's where like the work is of like, how do I get more comfortable shedding things, saying no to things, delegating, saying this is no longer a good fit for me, reprioritizing, asking questions if this project even needs to be done in the first place, right? You are correct. It is not simple.
Yeah.
And that is where like the being clear on what you really want out of your career is an important drive in order to make those shifts.
Eming, can we give our listeners some homework? You think if we ask them to, like sometime within 24 hours of listening to this episode, go on a walk or take a piece of pen and paper or sit at home with your cup of coffee and just think to yourself, what is it that I want? Like Megan is explaining, if, you don't have to do it, but if you want to, this is your invitation to do so, dear listener.
Or if you want to, you could always, if you want to share it with us, which you can if you want to, feel free to email it to editor@smartmeetings.com.
Who knows? You could even be featured in an article.
Who knows? Anything's possible. Megan, you've really, once again, for the second time in a row, you've given us, everyone, a lot of information to process. And I feel like I'm just like going back to every moment of my life and like, did I operate in that correct way?
I feel like, this was like so informative and like so concise, by the way. Thank you. And like really just like well explained. I feel like I have learned so much just now. Not just for like communication and work, but communication and life.
You should write a book, Megan.
I would buy it.
I really think you should. This feels like a book.
2027.
Okay,
cool.
I don't know for sure, but I expect that there will be a book.
Okay, well, when there's a book, I will be purchasing it.
Definitely. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that, I mean, there's a lot we can touch on, obviously.
So much.
Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you think was important to people who work in hospitality or meetings that could benefit from this kind of, I mean, granted, there's so many things you could probably offer us, but is there anything else that we didn't touch on?
I guess in closing, especially in hospitality, we literally have thousands of interactions in a week. So many micro interactions, and interactions can feel heavy if we're not on the same page. And I think just in order to even preserve like your own happiness and your own joy and keep your stress levels low, what a beautiful world it would be if we all were more intentional with the words that we used and how we interacted with each other and being clear on what we wanted out of the conversation. I do think a lot of even like micro stresses in all of these interactions could fade away. And then how much better can we show up? Right? When we even take the stress of like some of these little friction points away. And I think it all starts with us being clear on what we want, and then we can be clear in the communication, and then we are setting expectations more collectively. And that is, I mean, for organizations, that's what I really do.
That sums it up pretty perfectly with like a very neat little bow. Thank you. I mean, like that's a pull quote right there. I love it. Thank you.
It is. Well, thank you again so much, Megan, for joining us on this episode of Smart Start Radio. We really appreciate your time and all the information you gave us. Like, I'm going to probably listen to this again throughout my life.
Oh yeah.
Visit this moment in time.
I feel like I grew as a person in this past hour.
Thank you.
So thank you so much
for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
You've been listening to Smart Start Radio, a Smart Meetings production. Interested in being our next guest? Connect with us at editor@smartmeetings.com.